Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Hey, everyone in, let's go. Huddle up on 3. 1, 2, 3. Huddle up.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen.
Russian 3, dropping 8. Uyangalele steps up, loads and throws. It's caught. It's pitched backwards, up in the air. It's on the ground, still in Clemson's hands. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off number 1 Clemson.
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Eller for the draw. And as the puck drops, the words that DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974, the Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
And now, welcome everyone to the Huddle Up Podcast.
We're not going to be fucking sucked this year. We're the Stanley Cup champions. Yeah!
Welcome, everyone, to the Huddle Up Podcast. We are live on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and our YouTube channel, and we are glad to be with you this week. And it is the brothers again, and we're pretty happy this week, if you couldn't guess. I threw in that clip. I'm sure, Sean, you didn't expect for me to be on top of my game and get that new clip in there from this Saturday.
I rarely am. Rarely am ready for it.
You've known me for how long? Yeah, it's not something.
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. But I'm not usually that good. But this week I was. Of course, we have tons to talk about this week, including Brian Kelly gets his signature win, and can Tiger successfully defend, and more. But make sure you go to our all of our social media. Subscribe to the podcast feed, our home network, of course, NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. We stream daily at LeibSports.com. That's LEEIB sports.com. If you go to our any of our social medias, you'll find the link tree. We have some merchandise up for sale through the end of the month. Make sure you check that out and help us out there. Get some cool merch as well. We'd appreciate that. But Sean, how are we doing this week, man?
Oh, we're doing. Had some pretty entertaining sports talk after the Sunday night debacle down here in the Bay of Tampa. Was quite fun to listen to. And, like I said, go out, get the merch. Notre Dame had their big win. Lots to talk about. Fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week coming at you. So should be a pretty good show.
Now, did you guys had another hurricane, right?
Well, there's a tropical storm swirling around the Gulf right now. It went east of Florida, went around the southern tip of Florida, and is just kind of hanging, headed towards the Panhandle right now. As of tomorrow and Thursday, it should be moving just past us. So this next 24 hours is kind of the point that if it wants to hang a right, well, here comes the rain. But we'll deal with that if it happens. Otherwise, we'll just wave at the Gulf and watch it breeze on by.
And I think we might be getting some rain from it, or some remnants of rain from it.
I saw the Northeast is getting some here this weekend. I saw.
Yeah, like I think tomorrow and Thursday there's a chance of rain, maybe this weekend, but we could certainly use it. If you're following along with us in the live video, give us a like and a share. We'd appreciate that. Also, interact with us, and we'll answer questions and things like that on the feed. No matter where you're watching, we will get those questions. But Sean, I decided to put up a question of the week this week, and it has to do. There's two teams in the Big Ten that I would say disappointment, but I don't even feel like that word probably lives up to what they're doing right now, and that's Penn State and Michigan. They have a combined record of 1-5. Michigan 1-2. Penn State is 0-3. Penn State plays Nebraska this weekend. Michigan plays Wisconsin. I'm not very
assuming that
Wisconsin game can play. If I'm Michigan, I'm just like, come on, COVID. No, but obviously, if we'll predict. Actually, we're going to predict both of those games since they are dealing with our question of the week. But with Penn State, I mean, even with them, they're hurting, but Wisconsin, obviously, if they don't play this week, they are disqualified from the potential Big Ten champ. If they miss another game, not just this weekend, but if they miss one more game throughout the rest of the way, they are no longer eligible for a Big Ten championship. But I simply put it out there because if you follow along, for me here in Central Pennsylvania, you hear the cries from the Penn State fan base. I follow along with Michigan's social media because obviously my wife's a Michigan fan, so stay up on the Fighting Harbaughs. Neither fan base is very happy right now. So I simply pose the question: which hot seat is hotter? And if you look at the two coaches, Harbaugh's in year 6 at Michigan, Franklin's in year 7 at Penn State. Harbaugh right now 48 wins and 20 losses, so he has a 71% winning percentage. Franklin right now 56 and 26, 68% winning percentage. So they're fairly close. Harbaugh's had 3 10-win seasons, a 9-win season, and an 8. Franklin started 2 7-win seasons, 2 11-win seasons. Then he had a 9-win. Last year they went 11-2. Franklin has had more success in bowl games. Harbaugh's lost 4 straight there. Michigan has failed to beat Penn State, beat Michigan State consistently. They have not beaten Ohio State since he's there. Penn State's had some of those big wins. They've slipped up other places. So there's kind of weird balances, and I think when you talk about college football, you always kind of go back to the most important thing you can do as a head coach, as a team, if you want to stay where you are, is beat your rivals. So I feel like that's where Harbaugh's hurting. That people are calling. I think this is maybe a little bit off base, but they're calling the loss to Michigan State a couple of weeks ago. I think it has more to do with the point spread. But the worst loss in Michigan football since the Appalachian State game. I don't even think you should put those two games in the same conversation. I understand that Michigan State came off the loss to Rutgers the week before, but to compare a loss to your rival to losing to Appalachian State is to me just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean that's not a great comparison. I mean, I understand where the comparison comes from and that the feelings are going to be very similar. But if I remember that Appalachian State game, I mean, that was a kind of a Michigan season where I don't know if they were projected to win the Big Ten, but there was a pretty prominent program still at that point, and it was that's why it was such a shocker, as it was kind of this. Well, why would you overlook this? And it became this. That was kind of the origin of a lot of the theory of scheduling those 1AA division those teams because. Scheduling them in Boise State, it was kind of this whole, why schedule the best one of them? Because the best one of them isn't really any better than the worst one of us kind of thing. But as far as comparing the two, I don't think it's close. that Appalachian State game was way more of a shocker at the time. You know, and I think as far as you talk about rivalry games, I think that's kind of one of the areas where Franklin has the edge here. Franklin has, you know, he had the whiteout win against Ohio State in a season where they probably shouldn't have. I think you had a couple, you know, obviously you've beaten Michigan, you've traded some losses with them. You know, it's, you know, the number of rivalries for Penn State is kind of been diminished in the Big Ten. But obviously you've beaten up on the rest of the ones around Pennsylvania, the Rutgers and those and the Marylands and those teams up until this year. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be Jim Harbaugh here. He's been on my hot seat for a couple of years. It's just kind of felt like that scenario where you draft somebody in the first round of your fantasy draft who turns out to be the dud of the year, and you just hold that value too high. You know, maybe some
Cordero Patterson.
Come on, Cordarrelle, I got you. You know, and you just you believe it's going to happen. Like you took faith in like a guy that had one good year, and you're like, it's going to happen again. And you know, it's week 8, and you've turned down a trade or two in week 3, and you're just beating yourself, and you just refuse to take them out. And I feel like
Bilal Powell is going to turn this thing around.
Bilal Powell is going to be the savior of the New York Jets. Very similar, and it's just. You know, it's kind of that scenario. I feel like Michigan, I don't know what else you're waiting for. You know, the guy has an abysmal record against those rivalry teams. You know, if you count Michigan State, that's going to help the record some. But it's still, you know, Ohio State's the big one. And he's struggled against Ohio State. You mentioned he struggled in bowl games. And I'm just trying to think, as Notre Dame fans, you know, when we were looking for our coach and it was like, let's go get another one, whether it was Charlie Weiss, whether it was Ty Willingham, never had a leash this long.
No.
Those alumni would have bought him out 2 years ago.
You know, honestly, you know, you talk about the leash, and I'm still surprised Brian Kelly survived that 4-8 season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if that's –
thank God he did.
I think if he had one more, like a second one of those – it would have been rough.
Right.
He'd have had to have beat 4 real good teams. It would have had to have been 4 big wins with the promise of a future. But for Harbaugh, I think just to, you know, the fact that it hasn't even been, and I see Phil here agrees with me on the feed. Got to be on the hotter seat. Came in as the savior, and that's the big thing. And I think it's just like I've put so much stock in him, like it's got to turn around.
The 3rd highest paid college coach, I believe.
Yeah, and it's unreal, you know, and you know one of the other two, Saban, so a little better track record there. But as far as what Phil was saying, you know,
should be gone too,
right? And you know, and Phil saying that it has to, you know, clearly always being 2nd or 3rd in that division. It's not even finishing 2nd or 3rd. It's the fact that over the past few years, I mean, it's been, will they be 2nd or will they be 3rd? Like it's not even. Well, they'll challenge Ohio State. It's always, will they challenge Ohio State? You know, and it's, can they finish ahead of Penn State? You know, it's always this like, who's going to be the big 3? And Michigan's always like kind of on the 3rd, looking into 2nd. And it just baffles me that the athletic department at Michigan is like okay with that, with how much you're paying the guy. You're going to eat the money either way. You may as well find somebody else that's going to, you know, push these kids and get the program. The recruiting clearly isn't working. You can't pull kids farther north than Columbus. They're stopping there. So
yeah, well, it's weird. I mean, they have top 10 classes, and I you know, Dana and I were talking about this today. We were walking. I mean, beautiful weather here in Central PA. This week it's been like in the mid 70s. I mean, it's been fantastic for November. Nice. You know, when we were talking, I think the thing, and Scotty, we'll get to your question here in a second. The thing that to me just is probably going to be the biggest indictment on him, and Phil just hit it. It's like he was reading my mind, is, you know, Harbaugh's in year 6 and he has not gotten a quarterback yet that's really been able to succeed in that system.
Well, they clung to one way too long.
Yeah, Shea Patterson should never have been the guy.
Yeah, and it was. I felt like he was clinging to Patterson, like Michigan's clinging to Harbaugh.
Yeah,
like I feel like it was like that was my guy. It's gonna work. I'm gonna get him.
Like Brian Kelly is loyal, is very loyal to a quarterback. I mean, how many times have we screamed at a TV. Why is Everett Golson still in? Why is Tommy Reese still in?
Well,
There's
yeah.
been points. Why is Ian Book still in? But Book, definitely played the best game of his college career on Saturday night.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll talk about that game in a second. It's and to me that's probably the biggest indictment is that they haven't gotten I thought McCaffrey, was it Dylan McCaffrey? I thought he should have gotten a better look. He ended up transferring. He stuck to John O'Corn, Brandon Peters.
I don't know if they've had anybody I would consider to be an effective college quarterback since Denard Robinson. I don't know that.
No,
and Denard Robinson was a phenomenal college player and probably should have been used better in the NFL. I felt just the athletic ability in general.
I think Denard Robinson was a couple of years too early.
Too early. Like if you got to all these gadget plays and the options,
you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Tua, Shoelace fits right into that.
And I feel like he would have been more the opportunity to be like maybe that running back that can throw or the wide receiver that can throw, can play multiple positions. He'd have been a great guy. Belichick would have loved him. And it's just kind of this, it would have been a pain to see in New England. But, I don't think, and we're not really talking about Franklin's lack of a resume here, and it is there. I mean, there have been some years where the promise was there and they didn't even finish as well. He's had some disappointing seasons, but for the most part, I felt that Franklin kind of took over I don't want to say a rough position. I mean, O'Brien leaving, may have been a blessing in disguise, but it kind of is, Franklin kind of came in and I felt the expectations weren't really there. So you're going to give that guy, especially in a conference controlled by Columbus, I feel like that's, kind of an uphill battle to begin with. And to be able to come in your first few years and beat Ohio State kind of shows. And man, I don't know where they're finding all these wide receivers, but they are definitely arriving in central Pennsylvania. I think that's unbelievable. They are constantly full of speed and great hands.
Yeah, and I mean this year should and honestly, if this weekend, I think there's Penn State has, and it sounds weird to right the ship against an 0-2 Nebraska team, but if you can win this game, the Dogs are probably going to get called off, Frank, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
If you go to Nebraska and lose to this Nebraska team, it's going to get a lot louder here in Central PA. Like that's the thing. And Scotty, they have not beaten Ohio State. He says Harbaugh still has a job at Michigan. Same reason Marvin Lewis kept the job with the Bengals. I mean, here's the thing, and this has always been my defense of Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, is when he took over that Michigan team, it had been decimated by Rich Rodriguez changing everything at Michigan. I mean, he was conditioning their offensive linemen to be to lose weight and to play this completely different system. Then Brady Hoke took over. They started playing Michigan football again. And then it all started to fall apart there. So like he took over a program that was so far below Ohio State, so far below Michigan State at the time, Penn State at the time, Wisconsin, and even some others in the Big Ten. So he had, to me, when you hire a guy that has played there, you're going to give him a longer leash without question. Like when you turn it over to a job, when you turn it over to a guy like Harbaugh, you're not going to give him a 2-year leash. And if he doesn't win 11 games in 2 years, you're already throwing him out the door. But you're in year 6. You're, by all intents and purposes, you're at least in year 2 of all of your recruits. Like this is a year where things should have went. And you came out great against Minnesota, and then the wheels have fallen off. Now, we don't know how good Indiana is. We're going to find out where Indiana is, not this week, but next week they play Ohio State.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly what Michigan State's going to be, because Colorado turned it around pretty damn quick under the head coach. It's now at Michigan State. Should you?
I'll tell you a big difference, and we may not know how good Indiana is, and I think we have a decent idea of how good Maryland is. But I will tell you this, the one thing those two teams have that Penn State and Michigan don't right now is those two teams believe in themselves. That's a huge difference. That you can see the way they carry themselves on the field. Indiana has bought into a new culture, a new system, a new quarterback. Whatever's going on there, that team believes every play that they're going to make a play, even when they don't.
They believe
and I feel that when you're watching the Nittany Lions and you're watching the Wolverines, I don't see that. after that, and they took a couple of big blows. I mean, the shot from Indiana to start the season, and then I would say the first quarter against Maryland, when that first quarter, Maryland came out hot, and that's exactly what they needed to do, because Penn State thought they were going to walk in there and turn the season around and stroll into an Ohio State game with a chance to make a statement and say, hey, don't forget us. And that's not what Maryland came to play. So I think that's the one thing I will take away from those two teams, is at least they have the confidence to step up to those teams and be like, hey, come at us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know Penn State had a couple of opt-outs, but you shouldn't be as bad as you are. A couple of responses from Facebook on the question. Mike says definitely Michigan, but the seat is toasty at Penn State. Dave says both are not quality coaches, been better in recruiting. Andrew says if either was fired today, they would have a large selection of good jobs available. Franklin beat an Urban Meyer coach team, usually keeps game competitive. His game management drives him nuts as a Penn State fan. Jason says Michigan Franklin has overall been good, with this season being a letdown. Harbaugh has probably been on the hot seat for a while. Chris says Harbaugh, I think it's let go first. PSU is committed to Franklin. And I mean, I agree. I think Penn State is definitely committed to Franklin. But like I said, if you lose to an 0-3 Nebraska team, commitments change. Notre Dame committed to Charlie Weiss for 15 years.
Yeah, and even though this season could get forgotten, as far as, well, maybe we'll forgive him because it's a shortened season. Maybe we'll, things are strange, maybe coaches, things like, but those high school, like you said, those high school commits, I mean, those are 18-year-old kids. I changed my mind every 30 minutes when I was 18. So, I mean, for those guys to be, I'm going to Penn State, I'm going to play there, and then see this kind of scenario, or same with Michigan, it's not unheard of at all, especially today. The era of social media and video games, the attention span is much shorter than it used to be. And I think, other teams are going to keep calling. Sometimes it's very easy to change their mind. But just the fact that Phil here made the comment about, Franklin not always being a pretty win, but he's turned the program around, made them competitive. That's why these are the two coaches being discussed here this week. Because I think that when I read has made them competitive, not always pretty and often frustrating, been a great recruiter, and been able to get great coaches to help. I feel like for the most part, Harbaugh, that could have been either of the coaches that he's describing there. You take Franklin's name out of that sentence, and I would believe that you were describing Jim Harbaugh.
There's been a couple of those games against even Ohio State where Michigan's been leading or led into the fourth quarter, and then there's been a couple of bad breaks. Ohio State ends up losing, because people have looked at the final score, and Ohio State ends up winning by 18-24. But if you look at the game,
there have been a couple that Michigan had.
So. And a couple of times it was, and everybody has an opinion on this, but there was a couple of times where there was some egregiously bad calls that went Ohio State's way. So we'll talk a little bit about what happened in South Bend on Saturday, but sometimes, and I've had this theory for a little while, I sometimes I feel like that the conference officials, there's a little pull to the top team in those games, because those are your moneymaker. If Ohio State loses to a Michigan team that's 15th in the country on the last weekend of the regular season, there's a chance that the Big Ten isn't getting college football playoff and national championship money. So, if Michigan get, if it's close to a first down, you're probably giving Ohio State the benefit of the doubt on the spot of the ball.
Yeah.
It's just how it is, so Harbaugh, they've been competitive. To me, if I'm answering this question, Harbaugh's seat is probably a little hotter, but I can see a scenario where both of these coaches are not back next season, depending how these next few weeks play out.
Yeah, and it's going to take the train wreck continuing, I think, for Franklin to be out. I think if with Harbaugh, I think there's one game for him now, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, you lose all of them except Ohio State, it's still going to be hard. But I think at this point that game's going to be huge. If you can get your first win against Ohio State, get a signature win in the middle of a poor season, maybe you've bought yourself a little more leash again. But, again, that inability to get a quarterback from a guy to come from the NFL and kind of be, have gotten a lot of credit for what he did with Colin Kaepernick and things like that. I'm just like
Stanford.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm not buying, and I think sometimes when you talked about, hanging in there on Patterson too long, and when Kelly hangs in on a guy, sometimes that's loyalty and faith in the player. Other times it becomes this kind of, I don't know, like an ego taking over. Like I can coach him, I can fix it. Like I'm the guru, and it becomes this whole battle. Like who's really keeping him in there? So I don't. I'm gonna stick with my Harbaugh pick here. I don't think Franklin's had enough of a low end track record. A couple of games in the grand scheme of things isn't going to scare them away from him, especially with these players that wanted to play for him and are playing for him. When you get the opt outs back, maybe you're able to turn around. I think eyes are going to be open and they're going to be watching. But I don't think this year's it for Franklin really at all. Short of an absolute meltdown, no win season. I don't see it. But Harbaugh, I think, definitely is.
Yeah, I just checked. Wisconsin has their COVID cases down to 5. They expect to return to play this weekend against the Michigan Wolverines. We'll be predicting that game in a little bit. Ohio State and Penn State, even if you finish the year 3-6 or whatever it is, 3-5, but you close out the season with a win in Columbus, you might buy yourself another year.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about the Michigan-Penn State game being the Save Your Job Bowl. I didn't really think about that.
But one before we close up this topic here, Phil says, how much do you think colleges consider what other coaches' alternatives are out there in determining firing one of these guys? Sometimes I feel like that's a forgotten part of the decision. I think that obviously plays into it. I think I saw, and my wife shared it to me, that there was like an odds maker was, you always see who's going to be the next coach here when you talk about these big schools and potential replacements. And they have the defensive coordinator for Clemson as the most likely candidate should Harbaugh get fired. I think that would be a great move because, they've had a lot of trouble defensively, especially this year, but has gotten to the later stages the last couple seasons. So I think that could be a pretty smart hire. If Michigan does go that route, get somebody that's going to focus on getting that defense really, really tuned up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, schools are looking at who's out there. I mean, you're not just going to throw them to the wolves, but sometimes, you can tell pretty early in the season who's going to be available. I mean, sort of a miracle, NFL firing or, and we've seen sometimes, people talk about the trouble that college coaches have making the jump to the NFL. I think sometimes you're starting to see some coaches that jump from the NFL back to the college ranks, and just it's not so much an element of the NFL is so much more harder and more competitive. I think it's just two different monsters, two different beasts, and I think when you get too ingrained into one of the two, making the switch either way is hard. But you kind of touched on it with the coordinator. I think sometimes it's I don't want to say better or like the trouble is when there's one or two big names. Is when you fire your coach, you're taking one of those two. And if that one turns out to be the same, especially when you're Michigan, who just did that, like went out and got a big name and a former player, you don't necessarily want to make that jump. So firing him at a time where there isn't as much available and getting the opportunity to maybe get somebody a little less proven, kind of the whole Rams with McVay kind of thing, and a chance to just make an experiment. In a scenario where it buys you like 2-3 years.
Sure.
And it's really, no pain, no gain. We got to a coach. We got the guy we thought was the guy. Hey, we were wrong. Like, bring in the big name now, as soon as he's available. Like, and then, like, as soon as the big name's available, it's like, hey, buddy, your leash is cut. We'll see you. Saban, you want to come coach us? That kind of thing. So I don't I don't think it's necessarily the final straw. Obviously, if the guy you want is out there, might make the leash even shorter or just get the Axeman out. But I think if you're ready to move on with your program, I don't think in the grand scheme of things it really matters who's out there as a coach. You'll find somebody.
Well, we saw that with when Notre Dame fired Charlie Weiss and hired Brian Kelly like almost immediately, and Kelly had left Cincinnati. It was like, look, this is the guy they wanted. They weren't going to wait on it. and the writing was on the wall with Charlie Weiss as it was. So
right.
We're gonna continue here, and we're gonna talk some of the bigger games in college football this upcoming weekend. But I want to go back here to a comment from Scotty, and obviously for us, this past weekend was a pretty good one. We haven't had a win like this as Notre Dame fans in a very long time, since 1993. Was the last time they beat the number one team in the country, obviously beating Clemson, ending their 36-game regular season win streak. Scotty says, with how Notre Dame played on Saturday, can they compete with Alabama or Ohio State?
Yes.
Yes, I think they can compete. I don't know if they can beat Alabama. I think they can beat Ohio State. Ohio State, I think you approach the game in a very similar way to how you beat Clemson. You have to make them one-dimensional, and you have to try to limit big plays. And that's what Notre Dame was able to do. Any success Notre Dame has is going to go through the defense first. They kept Travis Etienne to under 100 yards of total offense. That's how you beat
Which
Clemson.
Is unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. And his first run was 10 yards. The rest of his runs, I think he had 17 rushes for like 50 yards after a 10-yard run on his. So he had like 18 carries for 60 yards, but the first one went for 10. They did a tremendous job. He scored, and Clemson scored, and they had a couple of big plays. They had a 50-yard pass.
I was going to say he had a big reception, Etienne.
No, that wasn't Etienne that called that one. That was the receiver, because
Etienne had one out on a screen that went pretty long. It may not have been 50 yards.
The 50-yarder was that touchdown. That was to a wide receiver. That was like that I shared with you and Dad. It was like the first time Notre Dame had given up a play over 50 yards since like the 2018 bowl game or something. Like it's a ridiculous stat, especially considering Notre Dame's had such bad defenses for a number of years. But I think they can beat Ohio State. They can compete with Alabama. I don't know if they can beat Alabama. I don't want to find out at least until the national championship game. But yeah, I think they can absolutely compete with them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking competitive, I would say absolutely. I mean, for one thing, I'm still hearing, a lot of people say, if Trevor Lawrence is out there, that game's not close. I don't know how you can really say that. I mean, he plays similarly. Obviously, the experience is there, and it's a slightly different, game plan. But, I heard, before and even after the game, interviews with Brian Kelly about the game plan really hasn't changed against Clemson since they played him with Deshaun Watson.
Right.
It's the same basic defensive plan. You're going to have a lot of screens. You're going to have a lot of disguised plays, and you got to be aware that it could happen anytime. You got to kind of cheat up with some safeties, and it's going to cost you some plays. Yeah. And that's why Clemson, makes some money on the big play. But I'll say one thing: that kid can play.
This is the third
freshman.
time
He could have stepped into a lot of programs, and started for 4 years. Yeah, this is not just like a oh man, we found this diamond in the. He could have. He had calls from a lot of programs. He wanted to go there. He wanted to sit for a year and take over a team.
Year.
Yeah, so
this is the third time that the Notre Dame's played Clemson.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly has faced Dabo Swinney once with Deshaun.
We had a really game in the swamp, right, with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it was in a hurricane.
We should have won that game.
Yeah, shouldn't even have been played, quite frankly. But that's
it was like 6-9 or something. Who knows?
And then in the college football playoff, in Trevor Lawrence's freshman year, the same year that Uiagalelei's, he's a true freshman as well. So it's not. It's not like he's doing something that Trevor Lawrence didn't. Trevor Lawrence is a true freshman.
If Trevor Lawrence would have declared for the NFL draft, this DJ kid would have been their starter for the full season.
Yeah,
like he was already committed. He's coming there. He's going to play. He was highly recruited. I think for that reason is that if he goes, we've got our guy. But this guy played real well. And the other thing people need to remember is yes, it went to double overtime. Yes, Notre Dame scored in dramatic fashion, which, first of all, when's the last time Notre Dame did that to force a
Right.
overtime like that. Like, didn't hang their heads down, came down and made a play. And I saw that. I think I told you and our dad in a text message when it was kind of. I felt both of you waning. I felt you guys just, here it goes, here. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I was there.
I had seen Ian Book had made a mistake in the red zone. The fumble. After that fumble, his next two possessions, I saw a lot of just moxie and grit. And I was like, I like where his head's at. I like where his eyes are at. And I think he's going to lead us to a score. And sure enough, there he went. And
minute 19,
but let's not forget that Notre Dame did have at least 3 possessions where they should have had more points than they got. Yes. They had a 3, and a 0 that should have been 7, 7, and 7.
Absolutely.
And if any of those 3 become scores, I'm not so sure Clemson gets back in it. Clemson had to make a push there to get back in that game.
Yeah.
Notre Dame had control, and maybe it was the kids settling in, for them. But so when you factor all those things in, not to mention the fact that, you take the quarterback away, level the playing field a little bit, and you let our coaching staff kind of coach against Clemson's coaching staff. I think for a while there, Kelly was winning a chess match, and then it kind of turned around. But he showed he can on a game day outcoach just anybody that he wants to outcoach as long as he doesn't.
This was Ian Book's best game. This was Brian Kelly's best coach game of his career by far. I love the way the offense. I was nervous last year before the whole game when they announced Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator. I thought, man, that's pretty bold. Like the youngest offensive coordinator in college football. I thought this is,
and it's not even like he was that effective.
No, like he wasn't a great
player
quarterback. Like remember that year in 2012 when they went to the BCS national title game, he was the closer. Like Golson was the starter, and when they needed a big drive, Tommy Rees came in. So it's not that he was terrible, but he just wasn't. I never would have imagined. And I've seen a lot of theories, and it kind of
wasn't the guy to put up the points when you had to pad stats. But he was the guy that, like, hey, we don't want a mistake. Get in here.
Yeah, like, almost like an Alex Smith in a way. Like, he's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you games. But I've seen a lot of theories, too, that they think that he's being groomed to be the event to take over for Brian Kelly, similar to how Lincoln Riley took over from Bob Stoops when Bob Stoops retired, which, Kelly signed what was a 5-year extension this year, plans to retire after it. That kind of makes sense. Keep him in that job.
As long as things, stay the course and everything looks good and you're able to adapt. Obviously people are going to adapt to you. You got to be able to constantly change and get the work in. Am I afraid of Boston College? Not on paper.
We'll talk
knowing it's hanging out there is horrifying. But if you're asking me, can we be competitive with the best teams in the country? I think you just proved that.
100%. Notre Dame proved that And the jokes have been written for 20 plus years about how they can win the easy ones but not win the hard ones. Sometimes it was justified, other times it wasn't. But they showed on Saturday that this Notre Dame team is different and gives us something to be excited about. So Sean, let's go to the picks now, and we will we'll go a little quicker through these than we normally do, just because
definitely.
Get a little long-winded there, but definitely good discussion. Last week I was 3-2 against the spread, 17-12 overall in college football. You were 4-1, 23-6 overall. So I still have some ground to pick up on you here.
Still firing.
But like I said, we're going to start in Lincoln, Nebraska. We don't typically predict games with 2 undefeated or unranked teams, but we're going to do it because we talked about them in the top. 0-3 Penn State. They're a 3-point road favorite at 0-2 Nebraska. 56.5 is the over-under, noon on FS1. Don't know why you'd want to watch it, but it's on FS1.
Yeah, it's on there. Get your cable. Get your cable package.
I'm gonna give Nebraska the home edge. Penn State may win by like 1, but I'm gonna say Nebraska's gonna cover. I would love to, I still hate Penn State, so I would love to see the upset happen. I guess you can call it an upset at this point. But I'm taking the under. I think both these teams stink out loud. They might be lucky to hit 50 combined. So Nebraska plus in the under.
Gosh. I don't like when I knew what question was coming. I knew what we were going to discuss. I did not expect to have to pick this game.
Yeah, look at
Lord.
behind the scenes. I don't give these guys a tip. I don't tip my hat on what games we're predicting.
Well, all right. Well, let's go. You like Nebraska at home. I'm not going to fall into the same trap I fell into last week. It worked for me in college football. My NFL record not quite as good last week. I got into a pattern. I can't get into the pattern. Got to pick smart. But I think, just based on the skill positions that are there, I'm going to take Penn State in this game. I think Penn State, that 3-point favorite. If I was, if I'm a betting person, I'm going to throw some money out on some college games this week. Maybe I sprinkle a little on Penn State, part of a parlay, because for all intents and purposes, there's no reason from a talent perspective they should lose this game.
Right, they should win.
Now, having said that, based on what I've seen in the track record, 52 points to Ohio State, only 21 to Northwestern, but who in the world's throwing the ball or catching the ball for Northwestern? They still gave up 3 touchdowns.
They're leading that division.
I'm aware.
Wisconsin.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware of everything that's going on there, and it's a hot mess. But what I will say is that neither team, to me, when a team actually has skill position players, is going to be able to stop anybody. So you're right. They're both terrible, but they're also both terrible on defense. So I think the offense is push. I take the over, and I take the Nittany Lions.
All right, then we go to who would have thought we were going to predict 2 Coastal Carolina games this year? Number 15, Coastal Carolina. This is not a good week of college football.
Clearly.
By the way, not a good week. There is not a matchup.
I think you're trying to test my 24-6 or whatever I am.
There is not.
Games at me.
Sean, I've done a week like this already, and I'm still 6 games behind you. So it's not like I'm gaining ground on it. But there is not a game where 2 top 25 teams play each other. Number 15, Coastal Carolina. They're 7-0, 8.5 point road favorite at Troy, 4-3. 50.5 is the over under, noon on ESPNU. I'm going to go Coastal Carolina. Keep that thing rolling. This team's having a blast, and I'm taking the over.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, fun team to watch. I love the mullets. I love the party. I love everything about it. It's like a tailgate at a Lynyrd Skynyrd concert, and I love everything about it. I do like Troy. He's a real nice guy. I don't think he's going to fare very well against 11 guys at any point. But no, seriously, Troy's program in general has had some big wins, chances to upset teams. Maybe that happens here. I don't think so. I'm with you. Train keeps rolling. Give me Coastal Carolina and the over.
Then we go to Western Carolina. They travel to, if you needed any more proof that 2020 is wacky, number 22 Liberty. They are 7-0. Western Carolina is 0-0. This is their first game. Number 22 Liberty, Sean, is a 32.5 point home favorite. The over under 60.5
against a team that hasn't played yet.
Against a team that hasn't played. This one's at noon on ESPN3. You can find this game online. I'm going to take Western Carolina to cover the 32.5. Liberty's going to win this game, but 32.5 is a gigantic number. It is huge. It is huge. So Western Carolina's going to cover, and I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I'm looking at Liberty's track record and see if they've won any games by 32. They won 1. They beat UL Monroe 40-7. That's the only one. Everything else, they've given up at least 21 points. They have two 7-point. Yeah, I'm gonna take the same. I'm gonna take the cover, and I'm gonna take the over. I think there's a chance Liberty does this. In case you were wondering, Western Carolina's last game, they lost 66-3 to Alabama on November 23rd of last season. So can they give up a lot of points in one shot? Yup. I wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole in Vegas. But yeah, give me the cover.
All right, then we go to the game that I'm pretty sure when this season started and when you and I predicted this season, we looked at our schedule and we said, okay, so we have Clemson on November 7th. And then the following week, just like 1993 set up.
Yeah, who scheduled this?
Boston College. If you don't know the history, Notre Dame upset number 1 Florida State in 1993, and the next week hosted unranked Boston College and lost by a field goal. So number 2 Notre Dame, 7-0, and they are a 13.5 point road favorite at unranked Boston College. They are 5-3. 50.5 is the over-under on this one. It is 3:30 on ABC. And that, like, realistically, looking at what Notre Dame did last week, I should be confident going into this game. I should be like, we got this. But much like I started to wane a little bit when that Ian Book fumble happened, I'm nervous, Sean. I'm nervous. This game scares me. Like, it just feels like, it is still the calendar year is still 2020. So, like, I'm just looking at, like, we had something good. Is this the bad that follows the good? I think Boston College is going to cover the 13.5. They know the history too. Like these schools know the history. It's the only 2 Catholic Division I schools. Like it's an old rivalry. It's renewed. Boston College. They've done this to us another time. 2002. We weren't number 1 in the country, but we were undefeated, and they spoiled an undefeated season. So they've done this before. This Boston College team with former Notre Dame quarterback Phil Jurkovec, he's having a pretty good year. I think Boston College covers. Notre Dame wins this game, and that's all you need. Go to Chapel Hill, get the win. And I'm taking I am going to take the over. I think our offense is going to keep rolling, but Boston College is a pretty good offense as well.
Yeah. Let's not forget that Boston College team that beat us in 1993 was like 8-2 or something like that at the time. It was not like they just were completely, unflawed team. It wasn't an out of this world upset. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing Boston College could do to salvage. Even if they were to lose the rest of the games this year, if their coach wins this game, he's fine for probably the next 2 or 3 years. He's not going to get, he wins this game. So, it's everything's for Notre Dame to lose. 13.5 points seems like I don't know. I don't even know who that spread favors, but I think you're right. I think, when you look at everything, you got to play this one on paper. You can't keep saying, well, what if they come out and, if you like playing the mysteries of sports and let's predict the unpredictable, sure. Go out, put your money on Boston College. Put all your money on Boston College. And then, tear up your ticket when the game's over, because Notre Dame's going to win this one handedly. This is a situation where it's not at the end of the season where it's like, oh, we're almost we have other games to play, including a North Carolina game. Kelly's got them pretty much one game at a time. I don't see any reason why Notre Dame doesn't win this game. I'd like us to cover as well, and I'll take the over.
All right, and then we go to the night game on ABC. It is number 13, Wisconsin. They are 1-0. Again, they won their first game, haven't played in 2 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks since by the time that the game is played. They're a 1.5 point road favorite at Michigan, who is 1-2. 51.5 is the over-under on this one, 7:30 on ABC. Man, like we were talking about, if you're Michigan, you have to be prepared. You have to come out and be ready for this game. That said, I feel like what for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, if Harbaugh's losing the locker. I don't know what it is. I truly don't. But I just feel like it's snowballing at this point for Michigan, and I think Wisconsin wins. I think this may be one of those games where Michigan keeps it competitive. We talked about that. But I think in the end, Wisconsin gets it at 1.5. You're basically a win or lose at this point. I think Wisconsin wins this game, but I'm going to take the under. I think 3 weeks off for Wisconsin is going to hurt them. They always have a pretty good defense, so I think the points are going to stay tight.
Yeah, it's a strange one to pick because you're right. Michigan definitely needs this game. But the argument that Michigan needs it more is questionable because with a couple of weeks off and some games that may or may not get made up, if you're Wisconsin
not making up games,
so they're toast.
Okay, for you to make a big the title game, the division winners are based on winning percentage.
Gotcha.
So
they need this game as much as anyone else. At least when you're going to look at bowl bids too. Like it's not so much just win the Big Ten. You only played 4 games or 5 games. Who's putting their money in on you? But they came out, they thrashed Illinois, had to take a few weeks off. These players are chomping at the bit to play, maybe a bit too much. I think you're right, though. Wheels sputter. I will, too, take the Badgers. I will take kind of slow sputtering Wheels from Wisconsin and another sloppy day out of Michigan to keep it under as well. So I don't think we're going to differ as much this week as we did last week.
No, and just because it's a weird week, like I didn't feel confident like locking any of these games. It's just a weird slate of games. So no locks from us here.
Notre Dame was as close to a lock as I got.
Yeah, and I mean,
I know better.
I'm not. I wasn't going to lock against the Irish, and like I said, Notre Dame still wins that game, but I wasn't about to lock against it. But we are going to.
By the way, I found it before we paused it. I did find. I was looking all over for it. If you wanted to know what the spread on the Boston College game in 1993 was, 14.5.
Wow.
In case you were wondering, 14.5. But Boston College was ranked 16 in the country.
Okay, I thought they were unranked, so it wasn't
16.
an unranked team. So, yes. Still see. I'll never forget when we went to we toured NBC Studios, and Notre Dame's been on NBC. Their home games on NBC
for a long time.
The clip that they ran at NBC Studios in Manhattan was the clip of Boston College upsetting Notre Dame. We almost destroyed the lobby of 30.
It was bad. It was not good.
Like we had to be restrained by our friends in the NBC store. When we saw that clip, it was not pretty. But we are going to pause here. We're going to take our commercial break. On the other side, we have our NFL picks against the spread. We're going to look at the Masters this weekend and more. Stick with us. Huddle Up Live.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis on all things sports. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, subscribe to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports, and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop. Welcome back to the Huddle Up Podcast. We are live here, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Sean and Jim back here. And make sure you are subscribed to us. If you subscribe on any of the podcast feeds, we appreciate that. We're also on Spotify and Amazon now. If you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, give us a rate and review. We'd appreciate that. 5 stars. We like 5 stars the best, but give us a rate and review. We'd appreciate that. Get our name out there.
6 stars.
I don't know if that's an option, but if it is, do it anyway.
All 6. Write in an extra star. In the comments, type, I would give 6
there you
stars.
Go. I like that.
At least.
Absolutely. All right, Sean, let's look at the NFL and our picks against the spread on the season. I went 2-2 last week for 18-13 overall. You went 2-2 as well.
Oh, I did go. That's right. I got the New Orleans league.
Yeah, you got that New Orleans one. Yeah, I believe
nice.
Brady a little bit too much. That was about as ugly as it gets. And then you are 21-10 overall. So things are a little bit closer.
A little bit.
In the NFL. Let's see here.
There we go.
That's a wrestling joke from Ryan. Hope everybody's having a good
6
night.
stars in Japan.
You are watching us. Bye weeks this week. The Jets, the Chiefs, my Cowboys. We can't lose, baby. and the Falcons. I was almost pissed that the Cowboys were beating the Steelers on Sunday because I'm like, it would be the most Cowboys thing in the entire world to be setting yourself up. I think right now, if the season ended, the NFL draft, I think the Cowboys would be fourth. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for a top 5 pick, and you're going to blow it.
And you're going to beat the only undefeated team in the NFL.
Like, stop it. Like, Garrett Gilbert looked good. Potential backup maybe behind Dak next year.
Maybe.
I did see that they're turning the reins back over to Andy Dalton, who should be returning this week. So maybe
he's going to be on a very short lease.
Well, it looks like they're committing to losing, so that's a good thing.
There you go. It's like letting Cam Newton play.
But yeah, I love the takes from last night's game, by the way. Everybody like, Super Cam is back. He leads him to a win. I'm like, that was the 0-9 Jets. Like, that, right? Like, the Jets are terrible.
Adam Gase.
Yeah, Adam Gase and the Jets. I did love that it was Nick Folk that closed that one out.
That is pretty fair.
But yeah, Super Cam not back. The Patriots are still trash. To me, I thought, and I'm watching the first half of that game last night. I'm like, they're tanking. They went.
I sent you a message. I told you, and I said on the podcast last week, bet against, if you got some fun money, bet it on the Jets in both of those games. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what the spread was on that game. You might have pulled that one off. Betting the Jets.
Yeah, I don't remember what the spread was on that one, but yeah, the brutal. Just absolutely brutal. All right, 4 games, Sean. We have we're going to start Thursday night. I think this might be the first time we've picked a Thursday night game since
I hate Thursday night game.
But not a great slate in the NFL this week. So that's why we're looking at one on Thursday. It is an AFC South battle. The 5-3 Colts at the 6-2 Titans, who are a 1-point home favorite. 49 is the over-under, this one on Fox. The Titans keep winning, but I still say this team's a fraud. I don't think the Colts are any better, but I have to stay on brand. I've been calling out the Titans for weeks. They're not good. Who'd they play this week? They barely beat
the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears suck.
Yeah, but the Bears are like
the
same team. Mediocre offense, normally a good running game.
The Bears suck.
The Bears are bad, but their defense is real good. Their defense is what keeps them alive.
Good, but they suck. They're the Bears, and the Titans are a fucking fraud. I don't care. They're a fraud.
You are sour. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I think people are way too high on Tennessee. So I'm going to take the Colts. Again, 1 point. If you're taking the cover, you're probably taking a victory. Theoretically could be a tie. But I'm taking the Colts to cover and win, but I'm taking the under. These offenses aren't very good. I think it's going to be a defensive game. As long as Phillip Rivers doesn't have to try and tackle somebody, I think the Colts will be fine.
Yeah, I've been pretty high on the Colts all year, and the Colts defense, and kind of being, this kind of being the team that surprised me. I didn't expect a lot out of the Colts. I think that they've come in and been one of the best defenses around. But, last week, coming in, getting a chance to play Baltimore. Now, I'm not saying those two defenses are in the same breath, but they're close. And you got a struggling Baltimore offense. And this may have just been Baltimore's defense stopping the offensive games, but this is a team that, you put up a ton against Detroit the week before in 41 points. You played the Bengals, you put up 31. Congratulations. But against teams with defenses, they've really kind of struggled to put up some points. I mean, even against that Bears team, which, by the way, the Colts have also beaten by less points. It was 19-11. But they I don't know. I feel like the Colts are kind of untested with their current regime in larger games. I think this is probably the most meaningful game they've had to step up and play. And I think it's nothing new for the Titans. I think the Titans, having gone on that run last time, the fact that you can run against the Colts, and the Ravens kind of proved that as best they could with their mix of 100 guys or whoever was touching the ball. Well, there's someone a little better than who the Ravens have running at you this time. I'm going to take the Titans, which, by the way, their only losses are a fluke one, I think, to Cincinnati, and a very close one to Pittsburgh. Of course, Pittsburgh barely beat Dallas, so what do I know?
I'm aware, but they've had a lot of close wins as well against bad teams.
Okay. Well, you can believe what you want. Titans are going to win this one. It's going to push the over, surprisingly, despite the defenses on the field. And Derrick Henry's going to haunt your dreams.
Well, he still does from that national title game. So that still hasn't changed.
Going to keep on haunting it. It's going to be Derrick Henry in 2 different uniforms running.
That's what I said. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, as a Notre Dame fan, I don't know if I'd rather have Alabama in the first round of the playoff or in the national title game. Maybe the first round, because at least then it's a different place that you can.
Yeah, at least then you had no hope.
Yeah, don't get me back to a title game unless
like
you're
you go up, you beat like a Clemson team, or you beat somebody out, and then just like bam, Alabama just murders you like last time.
Although for the first time, and I am happy about this, like a lot of college football analysts are saying that, I mean, unless Notre Dame gets boat raced, I mean, assuming that Notre Dame wins out, Clemson wins out, you play in the ACC title game. Unless Notre Dame gets boat raced, they'll probably still make the
playoffs, right?
Because of that win. So like that makes me feel good. They know the road ahead of them, but like it would be the most 2020 thing in the fucking world if everything else is on fire. Notre Dame wins a national title. Like just, and that's in December. Like just it's closing out the year strong. Like
just lock it up. Just put it.
I'm totally fine with it. I'd be totally fine with that. Not the rest of the year, but I'd be fine with the national title. Then we go to Sunday, 1:00 on Fox. A battle for first place in the NFC. The 3-4-1 Philadelphia Eagles are a 3-point road favorite at the 2-7 New York Giants, who are still totally alive in the NFC East. 42.5 is the over/under. 1:00 on Fox. This game stinks.
Yeah, it's technically not a battle for first. Technically,
I guess
the Giants cannot catch the Eagles.
The Eagles would still have like a 1.65 game lead. I can't figure it out with bye weeks and ties. It's silly. But so what, 1.5 it would be at that point, because it'd be 3-7 and 3-5-1. So it'd be like 1.5.
I don't even know how to do it. The 5-1 and the 7. There's like, I feel like there's games lost in the. Did they lose games?
Like
the Giants have played clearly 6 more games than the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know how that's possible.
The Giants haven't had their bye, or the Eagles have.
It looks like you just didn't play for weeks.
I'm taking the Giants to cover and win. I can't pick the Eagles. I'm not confident in it, but I don't like picking the Eagles. I just hope Carson Wentz turns the ball over 4 times like he did against the Cowboys, and the Giants find a way to win.
Well, I'll tell you this: the Giants' defense is a little better than Dallas's, so you better not, kind of turn over. They're a little more opportunistic too.
Our high school alma mater's defense is better.
That's true. That's true. I drove past a little midget league soccer practice, and I'm pretty sure they showed more promise on the defensive side of the ball.
Probably.
However, this is an Eagles team. Because people, and I said this, people have been bashing this NFC East. They've been like, oh, well, all these teams are garbage. And like the trouble you're in the first quarter of the season or the beginning of the second quarter of the season is if you've dropped a bunch of games, if you can win a handful in a row, all of a sudden, because if the Eagles win this, we're over 500 technically because we have a tie. I feel like we're technically over 500. 4-4-1.
Is it?
Is that exactly 500?
I
turn the page.
Exactly so you're 500. You're at 500.
Turn the page.
You're at like 500. I guess you're at like 500 because
I guess you'd be technically at 500, right?
You would be 500 because the same arguments you could make for being like 500 plus, you could argue for 500 minus, especially because you probably should.
It would be the first time on my recent memory that we would have been exactly 500 after playing an odd number of games, which is
right
talent in itself. If you ask me, that's more impressive than just being 6-2. Why not? Either way, page can be turned. You hit the 500 mark this time. The Eagles have a fairly favorable run here, mostly because we play in the NFC East. That's helpful. The team is healthy. Miles Sanders expected to practice. Alshon Jeffrey to return to practice, whatever condition he's in. I don't even know how old he is anymore. But you got a Jalen Reagor healthy, had a couple of weeks to get ready again. This is going to be the healthiest we've seen this team in several weeks. I don't know how much of the offensive line is going to be there, and Lane Johnson can only play in 3-play segments anyway. But it's a Giants team. Carson Wentz turned it over a handful of times. Danny Dimes can easily do the same thing. I think the Eagles come in here. They take control. You've had an extra week to get ready. I think the Eagles win. They cover. What was my over-under mark on this one?
42.5.
Over. I think the Eagles score plenty of points. I think they have the weapons to score some big plays, and the Giants do too once they have to pass. So I think this one pushes over easily.
All right, then we go to 4:05 on Fox. The 7-2 Bills, the first place 7-2 Bills, are at the 5-3 Arizona Cardinals, who are a 2.5-point home favorite. The 54.5 is the over/under on this one. 4:05 on Fox. This one I looked at and I started writing down the Bills, and Ryan was admiring our math skills on that one. I started writing down the Bills, and it's not that I don't believe in the Bills, because I think this team is pretty good. They're 7-2 for the first time since I think Jim Kelly was the quarterback in those Super Bowl seasons. I'm not totally sold on them. I also like this Cardinals team. Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. Like this team is fun to watch. So I started writing down the Bills. I changed it. I'm going with the Cardinals to cover the 2.5, obviously to get the win. I'm going to go over. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring in this game, but I think it's going to be one of those last possession sort of games. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals to win, and I'm even going to go bold.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock
What?
it up. Lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
You heard it here first.
Well, I can't lock it up then. Either way, to defend my math skills, I'm looking at a team that's going to be playing their 9th game. I saw 4 losses. In your brain, you just assume you're going to be 5-4. The tie just messes up all math. You look at it and it just explodes into there's exponents and there's parentheses and there's all sorts of things that start screaming by your face. There's no reason you should look at a tie. The NFL still needs to clean that up. No reason there should be ties in the NFL. Absolute garbage.
God, who the hell cares?
No one really does. There's not enough of them to really complain about it, but every time one happens, people are just confused. So let's just eliminate them. Roger Goodell, I know you watch. Come on, man.
College overtime, infinitely better than NFL.
Oh, way more entertaining for sure.
Absolutely.
Because the NFL overtime, especially the way it stands, like there are teams that literally are like, we have no business being in overtime. Let's just play for a tie. And you're just like, why are you running the ball 4 times? What is wrong with you?
like you can't watch what happened in that Notre Dame Clemson game and tell me that wasn't more exciting than what you get on NFL.
Make them go in from like the 35 or the 40. I don't care.
40, 45. But do
put them on the 5. What do I stop?
We're here in hour 16 of the Bills and Cardinals.
Got to go for 2 every play. Everyone. No kicks. Kickers are shot. One team just snaps it through the end zone, but you got this. I'm exhausted.
That was the XFL thing, right? There was no kickers.
No kickers.
You had a 1-point conversion from the 5. You had a 2-point conversion from like the 10 and a 3-point from the 15.
Anyway, Buffalo Bills had a pretty good performance last week.
They did.
Came out and absolutely baffled a Seattle offense. Threw a lot at Russell Wilson. Threw a lot at Pete Carroll, which I had fun watching. But
always fun watching Pete get beat.
Yeah, always good watching Pete get beat. But the Bills defense finally arrived. I mean, they still gave up a good bit of points to a good offense, but they did finally arrive. They showed some promise in the ability to get to the quarterback. Unfortunately, you had a very mobile quarterback in Russell Wilson. You're getting one of maybe 2 quarterbacks more mobile than Russell Wilson. Guy just came off a 104-yard rushing effort in addition to a couple 103 scores through the air. And I know that because I played against him in fantasy. Your wife's got the better of me in the fantasy in my own league. I feel like I lose to her every year. But it's okay. We're going to come back strong. Either way, I'm with you. I'm taking Kyler Murray in this one. It's definitely more of an agreeable week in both parties, I guess. But give me Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. I like everything they're doing. I think they're a way better team without Kenyon Drake. So hopefully if he is healthy enough to play, they're just like, yeah, why don't you just stay back there? Because we're just going to throw the ball all the time, and you're fat and slow. So why don't you just stay over there with your broken leg?
It's clearly looking at the
Coach are healthy, and then the coach is just going to like snap his fingers, and someone's going to club him in the leg.
Well, just be
And
clear,
like, I still hurt. I know.
we are not. We are in the Fat and Slow Club, so we're not we're not making fun of anybody.
Sometimes it's a fun club to be in, but not when you're a football player.
Oh, this is a great club to be in. Almost every weekend, I'm drinking beer and eating hot wings, watching football.
Yeah, you have literally no expectations from anyone.
I'm eating hoagies. I'm eating wings. I'm eating pizza.
And you're doing what you're supposed to do. Like you're Fat and Slow Club. You're like, what'd you eat for lunch today? Oh, well, I ate another pizza. Yeah. I ate a cheesesteak.
Drank beer.
Oh, you ate a cheesesteak? Yeah, it was a 6-foot cheesesteak from Subway. And people are like, oh, that's impressive. Like it's a feat of power. Like, wow, you ate that? Yeah.
I'm not even mad. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, kindergartner walked too close. I might have swallowed that guy. I don't know where he went. I was eating pretty hard. And they're like, impressive. That kid probably weighed 50 pounds. So anyway, let's move on back to the Cardinals. Give me the Cardinals. Give me the over. Let's move on.
All right, then we go to 425 on Fox. It is those Seattle Seahawks we just talked about. They are 6-2. They are at the 5-3 Rams, who are a 2-point home favorite. 55.5 is your over under. This one is on CBS, 425 Eastern time. Man, I hate Seattle. I really hate Seattle. I want to pick against them every time I have the chance. That said, I just don't think this Rams team is all that good. And I think Seattle they want to get a big bounce back here. And they're a team that usually responds to that type of situation pretty well. So I'm taking Seattle to cover the 2 points. They're going to pick up the win, and I'm going to take the under, though. I think the Rams defense is going to take the film from last week. They're going to do some things, disrupt the Seattle offense, but you have just too many weapons with Seattle, and they're going to find ways to do it. But I'm going to take the under.
All right. You're taking the under, and you're taking the Seahawks.
I am.
All right. I don't know how I'm going to defend this, what I'm about to say. Because I can't stand McVay, but I can't stand Carroll either. I don't believe in Jared Goff, and I completely believe in Russell Wilson. I don't know who's going to lead the Rams in receiving from week to week or who's going to lead them in rushing from week to week. But you can say that about Seattle as well. And I will say this, though. Aaron Donald is a much better player than anyone on Seattle's defense. And Seattle has a pretty good secondary, the Rams have a pretty good secondary as well. Almost said Seattle does, and I would have completely discredited anything I told you on today's program. I have to apologize for almost falling on my ass. However, what I'm about to say, one, if you'd have told me that the LA Rams would be a 2-point favorite, home or away, against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 10 with a worse record than the Seattle Seahawks, I'd have slapped you in the face and told you to take all my money in a bet.
What the hell is even that?
Having said that, there's a reason people want you to bet on Seattle. There's something they want you to believe in. McVay's creative. You don't know who to defend at any given time. I will give him that. And because of that, a defense that can't seem to decide who to defend in the secondary anyway. Now, they do have Adams back. He played last week. He's getting healthier. That should help them a lot. I don't think it really matters because I don't think you have a strength. You have Cooper Kupp. Is he really going to draw safety help? No, because he's not that fast. So I'm going to take the LA Rams in this. I'm going to take them to cover. I think with the extra kind of week off, just a chance to get ready. I think McVay's going to have some things up his sleeve. I don't know how you stop Russell Wilson, and I don't think you really do. I think you just kind of contain him, which is why this game's going to push over. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. So, normally I wouldn't sell the Rams as entertaining unless it's a game where they're going to get absolutely murdered and it'll be fun to watch. But I think this one's going to be kind of a shootout, but kind of a crafty shootout. And I think when it comes to kind of the technicalities of coaching, that McVay's going to outcoach Carroll in this one. Give me the Rams.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? Lock it up.
Oh, wow. Really?
Lock it.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Ridiculous.
Okay. wow, you fucking really the Rams.
Lock up the Rams over the Seahawks.
I would have never guessed.
I've lost all belief in Seattle when they lost in Buffalo.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. Sean, before we transition to golf and the NHL, NBA, real quick here, of course, we dole out the fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. So I turn the reins over to you to present your case for that.
Right. If there's one thing that the champion of the Fat and Slow Club would understand, it's irrelevance. So we've created the fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week, and there were some finalists, not as many as other weeks. We had a Mercedes Lewis appearance, blast from the past. We had a Drew Lock rushing touchdown, not even honorable mention, either of those. Here's what I found. As a tie for honorable mention, we had a Devontae Booker Las Vegas Raiders touchdown this week. We had a Nick Mullins to a Richie James.
Who?
Yeah, I don't even know what teams they play for. We had, and then we move on to our top three. Our third place finisher, Nick Foles, we all know and love, found Ryan Nall for a touchdown, bringing his season stats to 6 catches for 39 yards and a score. Second place, we had an old friend of mine, somebody who couldn't do anything in Philadelphia, Tua Tagovailoa, through to Mac Hollins for a touchdown this week. Mac Hollins played several years in Philadelphia. This still may have been his first touchdown. And
hold on, before speaking of guys that used to frustrate you in Philadelphia, how you feel about Nelson Aguilar catching every touchdown in Vegas this year?
I'm not that surprised. When you look at Nelson Aguilar, in our Super Bowl run, we would not have been in that Super Bowl game were it not for the play of Nelson Aguilar going into that game. Aguilar had a great bounce back campaign that year. Has he played real great since? Not spectacularly in Philadelphia, but I don't think he played poorly since that first year. I think it's just kind of become this fun butt end of a joke. We've had a lot of receivers play a lot worse than Nelson Aguilar.
Apparently he won hands at the craps table in Vegas.
Yeah, there's one hand just spilling his chips all over the place. He pays somebody to carry his chips for him. But anyway, Nelson Aguilar, in all seriousness, congrats to him. I'm glad he found a niche for himself, and I hope he does well. But our number one, your fantasy relevant touchdown of the week, he appeared as a finalist last week. He's come back to play again. Justin Herbert this week for the Chargers found Gabe Neighbors once again, your fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. Season stats, 3 catches. Yeah, by the way, season stats, 3 catches, 11 yards, 2 touchdowns is Gabe Neighbors' season stats, in case you were wondering.
Who the hell is this?
3 catches, 11 yards, 2 touchdowns.
So, I mean, if you're that desperate in fantasy and you're going to roll the dice on Gabe Neighbors.
If you're in a 22-team league
and you
need a fill-in for your flex, Gabe, you could do worse than Gabe Neighbors.
There's a chance that when he catches the ball, it's
going in.
And you will look.
You're a goddamn genius.
Let's remember, this is a team that has 3 running backs competing for fantasy viability. So how he's on the field, I have no idea.
It just doesn't make sense.
But either way, Gabe Neighbors, your fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week.
Congratulations. All right, Sean, it feels weird talking about football and then going to the Masters, but what isn't weird about this year? Of course, it was postponed in the spring due to the pandemic. They are playing this week. Tiger Woods finally gets to defend his crown. Sergio Garcia, the 2017 champion, had to withdraw. He tested positive for COVID, so he will not be there. Just looking over some of the odds for the Masters, Bryson DeChambeau is 8-1. Dustin Johnson 9-1, John Rahm 11-1, Justin Thomas 12-1, Rory McIlroy 14-1. Then we drop down a little bit here. Look at some of the bigger names in the sport. Bubba Watson 28-1, as well as Patrick Reed 28-1. Colin Morikawa, the young stud, he is 30-1. Tiger Woods, your defending champion, 35-1. Jordan Spieth, former.
That's a fun bet.
Yeah, that is. And this is a course where if Tiger,
I have till Thursday to place that bet, right?
If Tiger, the play starts on Thursday. A little earlier this year, because it gets darker in November than it does in April. So make sure you check your times on it. But as we saw last year, Tiger Woods minus 13. If he locks in, he knows how to win on that course. It was his 5th title a year ago. Jordan Spieth, the 2015 champion, he is 40-1. Sergio was 60-1, but of course the withdrawal. Ricky Fowler, 66-1. Phil Mickelson, 80-1. Gary Woodland, there's an old name for you, 100-1. Then you start getting real deep. Graham McDowell, 250-1. Fred Couples. I didn't even know Fred Couples was still playing competitive golf. He is 500-1. And won a blast from the past. VJ Singh, 1,000-1. And you go all the way down. Jose Maria Olazabal, Sandy Lyle, and Larry Mize are all 2,000-1. So if you want to just
throw it down on
bucks at the wall, and if you can afford to throw $10 away, that's going to hammer hard on you if they find a way to win.
Yeah, just pick a couple.
Earlier today, I made a pick. The Golf Etc. in Lancaster. Tommy Matani, I believe is. I always pronounce his name wrong. I know you know him and their family. He is the new owner of the Golf Etc.
I saw that
store in Lancaster. So super exciting. If you're in the Central PA area and you like golf,
I can never remember. It was Matani. But either way, check out the man's story. Knows what he's doing.
Great dude, awesome golfer, and super excited for him. They have a contest on their Facebook page where you predict the winner and what their final score will be. So I'm going to make my pick here, just as I did on that page. I'm going to go with Justin Thomas at minus 14 for the tournament to walk away with the clean jacket. Yeah. If you look over the past couple of years, Tiger last year minus 13. Patrick Reed was minus 15. Sergio Garcia in 2017 was minus 9. Danny Willett was minus 5 in 2016, and Jordan Spieth was minus 18 back in 2015. Don't know if and this is kind of a tricky one going into because it's going to be a different light because different time of day, different time of year. The course is going to look a little bit different. It looks fantastic with the fall colors, but it is going to be a very different looking and feeling Masters. So will the scores be better? Will they be a little bit worse? But I'm going to
get some falling leaves or recovery shots easier. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I'm sure they're still going to do an immaculate job at keeping that course pretty spot free as much as they can.
Well, I mean, as far as if you hit that one into the woods, is there less foliage to block your path out?
Maybe.
That's the interesting thing of playing in the fall. A lot of things in your way that may not be in your way. Might help Tiger Woods.
I play better in the fall and winter than I do in the spring and summer. That's for sure.
We're also fat. We sweat a lot less.
Well, that's true.
In the fall, unless you're in Florida, then you sweat just as much.
Right.
But either way, I'm going to take a little bit different path. Maybe I'll get on the Facebook page there and make my prediction there as well. But we definitely differ. I do think I think Tom's going to do just fine. I don't see any reason why not. I would love to be the guy that sits here and tells you Tiger Woods is going to repeat because I hope he does, and I am probably going to make that bet at those odds just so everybody's aware. But I don't think he's going to be the factor. I'm going to take the big heavy hitter. That's what I'm going to take. Grip it and rip it. Knock it around. Try to catch up with me on your second shot. I'm going to take DeChambeau to win the Masters. I like DeChambeau. I like the heavy hitter. And also, I read an article about it before. Like it was a kind of being hilarious, but I do love the idea of how large they're going to have to make that green jacket to fit the guy's built like a linebacker. Dude, Tiger Woods is going to have to hold a jacket that if he held up would
Tiger's going to be gone. Step ladder to get the jacket.
Oh man, it's going to be incredible. He might not be able to hold the jacket up after playing golf. If he has to play full 4 days, he may not be able to hold a jacket that large.
Did you see Rahm's hole-in-one on the practice round today where they skip it across the water?
Oh no, I heard about it I was coming home from school. I heard about it.
It is unreal. It is an unreal shot. It really is. But yeah, so
I'm definitely going to catch that on the replay. I'm going to take DeChambeau. You want me to take my score? It's very easy to make up shots when your first shot
goes 400 yards
on the green. Now it's not a course that's super friendly for long hitters either. Like, so he's gonna have
Bubba's done it. Like Bubba's the closest thing.
Yeah. So it can happen. I think it will happen because he's not just a club it and need it to go straight. He can finesse his drives enough. But I'm gonna take him at I'm actually gonna go lower scored. I'm gonna take it 18 under.
Jeez.
18.
Dude, it is unreal to watch the spin that pro golfers can put on the ball. Like I went to the Women's Open when it was at Lancaster a couple years ago, and the hole number 10 on Lancaster goes out a couple hundred yards, and then it turns. I mean, it's a pretty good pretty good dog leg about halfway out, and like I'm watching these golf and they hit it. It's like it goes like 210 yards straight, and then it turns. I'm just like, how the fuck do you do that? Like it is amazing for them to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to make this ball turn at 210 yards.
By the way, I said 18. I meant 16. I was going to beat you by a score, and for my brain, I somehow had you at 17, and I got real excited about 18, and then I did the math on it. I'm like, that's not what I wanted. I want 16.
That's a lot more.
Over 4 days, those two shots, you just never know.
Yeah, it always does.
Like 16 under DeChambeau, your Masters champion and the largest Masters champion in the history of champions.
Absolutely. Then we're going to really quick here, Sean, look at, of course, the NBA, NHL seasons normally are about a month or so in. Right now, they're still deciding when to come back. The NBA, I think just earlier today, everything is getting finalized. The NBA will get back to play on December the 22nd. They are going to have a 72-game season. They have 76. So they're planning on a 72-game season for the NBA. Wishing the best of luck. I saw as we were on the air the Knicks, all their facilities are being shut down because they're
being nixed.
They're being that's good. But due to positive tests, so we're gonna see how everything goes there. The NHL still hoping, they're still targeting January 1st for their return to play. They're still hoping to play a full 82 game season, but the NHL wants to get their normal calendar schedule back on track for 2021-2022, where you start in October. So they are kind of admitting that they have to be willing to shorten the season a little bit this year, get the playoffs in probably by mid-August at the latest, to get back on track for an October start the following year. I did see as well, Commissioner Gary Bettman said today that they are exploring the idea of what they're calling like short-term hubs. So they're not going to do like full bubbles like they did for the playoffs, because they're not going to take these players away from their families for the duration of a season. But what they would basically be is whether it's a neutral site or you would actually like travel to one city as a cluster, but you would play somewhere between 10 and 12 games in about a 2-week span. Then you would go home for a week, and then do it.
Now, are they just doing the week break? Like they say, go home for a week. Here's the issue I see with that is like if you want to play it in pods, like you almost need to build your schedule in pods where you're going to build. Like if you want to do a week at home, you need to give them like another week. Like unless you're really trusting guys to not go anywhere. Like that's the other big thing is like,
sure. Like
do you build in another week to like essentially quarantine and test before they have like a step into the bubble?
I don't think so, but I mean, you got to trust similar to the way the NFL is right now.
Well, that's true. And the NFL as a whole, they've had their scares and they've had their disasters, and I'm not sure out of the woods. But for the most part, when you look at the number of players, and I would have never guessed we got this far.
No.
So they've managed to kind of lock these guys down. Having said that, I think it's a pretty good plan. I kind of like the chance to kind of build it. I would like to see them maybe as the season goes on stretch that time. Like don't make me do like 10 games, 10 games, 10 games. Maybe like give me like a slightly longer stretch of games in one, and then like maybe 2 weeks. Like I'd rather see that where like get as many games played while you're in the bubble as you possibly can, as long as those players are willing to be there. And then like if it takes them, give them 2 weeks at home instead. Like because the farther into the season goes, the more you've invested money-wise, the more you're invested ad space-wise, and the more you're invested fan base-wise. So I feel like the longer it gets into it, the longer you should probably ask those players to be away. And maybe you, I don't know. I thought about it. Some interesting ideas I had were like a slow scale down to the playoffs. Like at a certain date, your bottom 5 fall off. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just knock off 2 from each side. Just sorry, you guys are out. And then
sorry,
you start jettisoning
sorry,
pods.
Panthers, you guys suck.
You guys are awful. You won't play anymore. Have fun at home.
Yeah.
And then you hit another date and you're like, well, we got to get rid of 4 more. Sorry, Vegas. You didn't get a chance to make that late season run. I'm afraid it's too little, too late. You're gone. And you just have this giant – you could even do it like Grand State. Anyway, either way, I hope hockey wins. I think hockey's the one sport that I think is most likely to pull it off because last time they waited till they had it just right. I think basketball's plans – I'm not saying I don't trust basketball players. I'm not saying I don't trust the NBA. I'm not saying I don't trust anybody in the organization. The pro is their rosters are small. The con is they had breaches of a bubble.
Right.
Like within weeks, they had they had one bubble. Everybody come in. Nobody move. Players snuck out of a bubble.
Players snuck out. They ordered
a strip club for wings.
They ordered, they went to, for wings.
And I'm not trying to perpetuate stereotypes. I'm not trying to say anything about any type of certain people. What I'm trying to say is you also have a very young league. I think the NBA as a whole is very young. It's very extravagant. It's also an incredible money-making league. So I know they don't want to throw any money away. I think 72 games without is a long stretch to ask these players to move around. Some of them see cities they've never seen before, have a ton of money they've never seen before.
I think what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to really just, you're not bubbling, but when you
show up, hit the venue, go back, go home.
Right. There's
no time in the town.
If you're in a city, you go to the hotel and you're basically locked in the hotel. Stuff like that.
They were locked in Disney World.
I know.
And got out.
Yeah.
The happiest place. There's walking ducks and mice there, James, that talk to you and sing. They have princesses everywhere.
Right.
And these players are like, that's not good enough for me. I'm going. I'm out. I'm going to go get some wings at a strip club.
But
I think Disney probably had a strip club during the NBA bubble. Probably.
Well, maybe.
And if not, the NBA planned it wrong. Just
right.
saying.
Right. You
put
give
a strip
them
club in the big Epcot ball there.
As much food and drink as possible. Yeah, they should have done a strip club. Why not? Why not? Just
build a tent, put some strippers in there, be like, have a good time.
Exactly. But
also you can never leave.
Bubble the strippers in with the
bubble the strippers in.
Lock it up. And everybody's safe.
They would have been paid very well.
Safety first. That's the
Safety
key.
First. That's the big thing.
All right, John, we're going to close this show up. Make sure you let people know where they can follow you and all that.
Well, as usual, you can follow me at Sean Shine State on Twitter. Make sure you send some recommendations on your fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. Hopefully I get some more live takes on that as Sunday progresses. But we're going to enjoy the weather down here in Tampa, whether it's storming or not. You enjoy your sports, whether it's storming or not.
All right, and you can follow me at Big Jim Sports. Make sure you're following along with the show. Go to all of our social media. Follow the link tree. Get the merchandise. We have that limited time sale up through the end of the month. Make sure you're following along with our home network, NGSC Sports, at ngscsports.com. Until next week, look, pandemic's still rolling, folks. Mask up, be safe, be smart. Until then, go for the win. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?